Ladies and gentlemen, great to be here tonight here on Pasifika TV and Radio. And we're very, very privileged to be joined this evening by one of our top Pacific celebrity chefs, the one and only Robert Oliver, who joins us this evening on Zoom all the way from Aotearoa, from the land of the long white cloud. Robert, great to have you on the program. Welcome to Pasifika TV and Radio. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Good to be here. Good to see you. Thanks.
Hey, look, Pacific Island Food Revolution is back for season 2. Could you tell us a little bit about what we can expect in season 2?
You know, you can expect awesome food from Tonga, Fiji, Samoa, Vanuatu, and Tonga. I said Tonga, and also so much personality. I mean, I think that because season 1, people knew the product, people in the Pacific had seen the product, they knew what they were signing up for when they came in as contestants. So we got serious characters in season 2. I mean, the Tongan episode is on tomorrow night, Saturday the 30th, on SBS Food at 7:30, and it opens with Tonga, and you're going to be laughing. I don't think there's many reality cooking shows where you're laughing, you're more nervous, but this is, of course, Tongan flavored. So it's driven by humor, humor and coconut cream.
Oh, love it, love it. And also note that, I mean, it's called a food revolution. So could you maybe share a little bit about the heart behind the vision? Why is it called a food revolution?
The project came up because a lot of my work in the past had been around identifying the various cuisines in the Pacific so they were relevant for tourism, because I knew that if you get the cuisine on the menus in Pacific tourism, which is our biggest industry, that would then flow into the farm economies. Local cuisine on a menu requires local agriculture. But what came up for me as a priority was the NCD crisis, the diabetes and the hypertension, etc., and which are predominantly created by what people eat. And I grew up in Fiji, and when I was a kid, we didn't eat processed food. It wasn't around, actually. And fizzy drink was a treat, and we ate from the market, and we ate those traditional dishes that are so fantastic, and lots of versions of that. And so I was like, well, no one had there were no NCDs when I was a kid. So we figured out that if we could, create this buzz around what the original cuisines are, the real Tongan food, the real Fijian food, etc., that it would go a long way towards mitigating some of the health crisis that the Pacific has been facing. And I'd just been a judge on my kitchen rules, and I'd seen how those big competition shows just get everyone engaged. And it's because of the contestants, everyone identifies with them. And they're awesome. And in the Pacific, the contestant pool is fantastic because everyone's good in front of camera, everyone's funny, and everyone's kind. And that was the other big thing about our show season 1. People commented on, wow, everyone's nice to each other, even though they're competing. they're looking after each other. I mean, we had scenes where contestants helped a competing team out. That's beautiful, and it's natural for Pacific people. So they don't know how special they are, So that's how Pacific Island Food Revolution was conceived of, as a health project. But the bottom line is, if the food is showcased, it takes care of the health. So we don't have to talk about health. We just had to get people rediscovering those old dishes and those crops that have looked after Pacific people for generations.
Now, I know you produced a few cookbooks, one of which was the Me'akai, which I love it because it's got a Tongan name on it. With that cookbook, it's been on our bookshelves for quite a while here in Australia. We've got a copy in our household that we use regularly as well. But aside from that, as you'd be aware, that the Pacific Island peoples are a minority in Australia. So this program is going to go to a very broad and very multicultural audience across Australia on SBS tomorrow night. What would you like, or how would you like to have this program received by our non-Pacifica audience, by our broader Australian audience over here?
Most non-Pacific people in Australia and New Zealand understand the Pacific either through Pacific people they know in country, but predominantly through the tourism lens. And that is, of course, that's a great way to know a place, but it's only a thin view of the place. It tends to be around scenery and around beaches and around relaxation and resorts, etc. So what's not fully explored are the Pacific people. And I think and Pacific food, by the way, is not really understood outside the Pacific. So I think that the non-Pacific viewers are going to be going, as soon as this lockdown's over, I'm getting on a plane to Tonga. Or you know,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that Vanuatu had this rich cuisine that really not many people outside of Vanuatu know about. And the story of the food is the story of the people. So you don't just get what's on the plate, you get the memories, the ceremonies, the events. I mean, Pacific people, food is the linchpin. I mean, one of our contestants in season 1 said, you can go to a wedding, but it doesn't really matter who the bride and groom are. It matters what the food's like. And I thought that's really true. And so I think it's going to be a big awakening in the Australian New Zealand community around the dimension of Pacific food and the dimension of Pacific people.
Mm. Now, you spend a lot of time in the Kingdom of Tonga, I know, and our predominant audience on this program is a Tongan audience. Do you have any special fond memories or any particular highlight that stands out to you in terms of a cooking visit that you've done to the Kingdom of Tonga?
Well, first of all, when I was writing Me'akai, the first cookbook I did not have Tonga included in that because I was running out of money and time and all that. And then I went to a meeting in Auckland, and there was this very serious Tongan woman sitting in the meeting. She was dressed in black and she had black sunglasses on. And I was asked to present the project to this group of people. And the woman said to me, if you don't put Tonga in this cookbook, it's not a Pacific cookbook. And she was a little bit aggressive, a little bit frightening. But I knew that if I had someone with the passion that she had to help me, include Tonga, that the Tonga part would be really successful. And that woman is someone I love dearly to this day, and that's Papiloa Bloomfield Foliaki,
Oh,
who
yeah.
everybody in Tonga knows. I mean,
Absolutely.
she's like the mother of Tonga, and she's remained a mentor to me all these years. I always look up to Papiloa, and I have great love for her. So she's my great memory. It was through her that I met Princess Pila Levu, and of course that relationship is understood through television as well. But Princess Pila Levu was a great friend as well, and I have immense respect and love for her also.
That's so good. Now, since season 1, or since even I suppose the cookbooks as well, and the work that you've been doing in terms of Pacific Island food revolution, have you noticed some positive changes or trends that as you've gone back to the islands since this started, that have maybe some changes in some of the restaurants, the way people are eating, and so forth?
Absolutely, and it's really noticeable in the restaurants in that, in Fiji especially, I would have to say. In Suva, like 10 years ago, there just were very few Fijian restaurants. There were always lots of Indian restaurants, but you didn't often find Itaukei cuisine in restaurants. Now there's many, and they're beloved, and they're not fancy, highfalutin restaurants. They're approachable, accessible, awesome, that yummy food that you crave, when mum's not around. They do that kind of thing. And I think Tonga will do the same. In season 2 of Pacific Island Food Revolution, you'll see tomorrow night on SBS how incredible some of the cooks are, and they will carry this kind of revolution process into their communities. When we film together, you don't just do the filming; you take in the spirit of the movement. And we found with all contestants from season 1 have gone back into their communities and done something revolutionary around food for the benefit of their communities.
That's so good. And I know as a chef, you spent much of your life in the Pacific. What are some of your favorite dishes? I don't know if you get asked this question very often, but what are some of your favorite Pacific dishes that you love to, maybe not cook, but to eat?
I love ika vakalolo, Fijian fish and coconut dish. I mean, your food basis kind of happens to you when you're a kid, eh? And those, you go back to those dishes because that's a time when you were looked after, and so they're reassuring. So I love pretty much all the raw fish dishes across the whole Pacific in all the various forms. You know, that's a big question because I could answer so many dishes, and I cook a lot of of Pacific food at home at my place in Auckland, because of course we can get the lu leaves and the real coconuts and all that kind of stuff here. Many dishes. I wouldn't want to. It's like picking a favorite child because there are so many. And something for me that I've learned a lot through doing Pacific Island Food Revolution and through Vitasi McKenzie, my co-host in Vanuatu, is the depth of traditional food in Vanuatu. It's really profound, and I think that Her Royal Highness Princess Pearl Levu, when she spoke at the launch of our project last year, said she was fascinated by Vanuatu because people in Samoa know a bit about Tongan food and a bit about Fijian food, and Tongans the same with Fiji and Samoa, but really we don't know much about the food of Vanuatu.
That's so good. And finally, where would you like to see Pacific Island Food Revolution go in the future moving forward?
We want to continue the project because it's creating such a great buzz and we're getting the impacts. But we want to grow the project at this point. We want to grow it so that contestants that are on the show and want to go do something in a community, we can help them do that. So we want to bring the big communication that we've created into the community in terms of action. And we've had tremendous support from both the Australian government and New Zealand governments with Pacific Island Food Revolution, and I'm sure that's what they'd like to see as well. So we hope to continue. Change in the way people eat takes 7, 8, 9 years. So we want to go that long, but in the process, really change the foodscape of the Pacific back to what it was. It's not complicated. It's still there. Grandmas still know these dishes. Young people are really excited about them, as you'll see in the show, because they feel their culture, and it's not an intellectual thing. It's a very heart-based thing. And I have great confidence through my experience of Pacific Island Food Revolution that the young people in the Pacific will look after the Pacific in food and health and in everything.
That's awesome. Look, thank you, Robert, so much for giving up your time. I know you're a very, very busy man, but we've appreciated having you on Pasifika TV Radio tonight, and definitely look forward to having you on very, very soon.
Malo Pito.
Malo. Celebrity Chef Robert Oliver there, all the way from Auckland, New Zealand, Aotearoa, founder of Pacific Island Food Revolution, of course also the author of our Me'akai cookbook there that's in a lot of our homes. Now, don't forget, you must turn your television on. What time? 7:30 p.m. That's Saturday night on SBS TV Australia-wide for Pacific Island Food Revolution, and of course featuring the Kingdom of Tonga tomorrow night. Malo Aupito.